Welcome back to tons of tips for taking awesome photographs. In this video, we're going to look at portrait mode, cinematic videos, and zoom or the telephoto settings. Now these settings all are on the newer iPhones, starting with the iPhone 10, going up to the newest, which is the 15. In iOS, the systems 15, 16, and 17. And so many of these cameras using these operating systems will have these options: portrait mode, telephoto option, and a cinematic video. And if you look at the image, it's an example of using portrait mode in stage light with a daylily. Now let's talk about portrait mode. There are several options. One is natural light. When you're using natural light, your background will be automatically blurred and the face or the subject of your image will be in sharp focus. Another option is studio light. In this case, the subject is brightly lit. And once again, the background is blurred. A third option is called contour light. In this case, shadows are used to enhance the subject's face. It's going to use highlights and lowlights, and this is all done with the software. Let's look at the difference. Here are the two pictures, natural light and contour light, side by side. If you look at them, you notice the background is still blurred. However, when using contour light, the jacket seems darker, so perhaps the colors are more rich. Notice the nose is light and there's a bigger contrast between the light and dark parts of the face. So if you're using portrait mode, you may want to take pictures in a couple of the different options and see which ones you like and keep those. Another option is stage light. In this case, the background becomes black and the spotlight is directly on the subject's face. And again, the user doesn't need to do anything. Once you select this feature, the software takes over. Another option in portrait mode is stage light mono. Now it's very similar to stage light. The light is focused on the subject's face, but in this case, it's a monocolor. It's a black and white. And one last choice is called high key light mono. In this case, the subject is in grayscale and the background becomes all white. So there are a variety of choices when you're in portrait mode. Well, how do you get to portrait mode? Well, you're going to open your camera and you're going to look down at the choices in the bottom and you're going to slide through to portrait. And once you're on portrait, notice that right above it there's a little cube and above that is a label. You can see that is set in natural light. Once you slide your finger through those choices, you notice that it will form a half circle and you can see the different options. So that's how you choose which option you're going to use in portrait mode. Now here's a hint. When you're using stage light mono, or high key light mono, a circle will appear and you want your subject's face in that circle. And you may see directions on the screen that say move back, you need more light, so you need to pay attention to those. You can't snap the picture until that circle turns yellow, like it is in the image to the right. Now, although the function is called portrait mode. It doesn't just have to be people or pets. It can be a number of things that you want to play around with different types of images. So I like to use it with flowers. And so you see two examples here. The one on the left is a hydrangea. Notice that the background is blurry and the focus is right on the flower. And the image on the right is a flower where I'm using stage light and the background is black, so it really highlights the blossom. Now, the cool thing is you may change your mind about what portrait mode you want to use, so you can do that in your Photos app with the editing software. You go to your Photos app and you go down the menu till you find albums. Once you're at albums, you look for media types, and under media types, you will see portrait. You select one of the images that has been labeled portrait, then you tap on edit, and once again your choices will appear, and you can see the orange arrow is pointing to the different choices. Now once again, I want to emphasize this only works with pictures that you took in portrait mode. And if you duplicate the picture first, then you can have the original, and then you can play around with other types of portrait modes. In the iPhone 11, night mode appeared. This goes into effect automatically when there is low light. The icon will turn yellow, and you can see the arrow is pointing to the icon for night mode. It's like a quarter moon. And again, you may get directions on your screen. Stay still, move back. So you just need to pay attention to those. Here's what it looks like on an iPhone 11. You can see the choices are right above the shutter. There the arrow is pointing to night mode icon. It hasn't turned yellow, so it's not in night mode, but it's there as the option is needed. Now here's an example from an iPhone 14 Pro where night mode is in operation. Notice that the night mode icon is yellow. Notice also that I'm getting the directions to hold still. Then you see that third arrow is pointing to a timer, and what that does is it counts down and it shows me how long I have to hold still. And finally, do you notice those crosshairs? If I get them to align perfectly, that's going to give me my best image. Let's move on to cinematic mode. This is video, and it first appeared with the iPhone 13 mini, and it has been in subsequent iPhone cameras. Well, what can you do with cinematic video? Well, number one, you can change the depth of field. You can create focus transitions. You can adjust the exposure. So it gives the user or the filmer some different options when they're making their movie. At the top of the screen, you will see a black band, and these are what the different icons stand for. Now, you probably recognize the flash symbol looks like a lightning bolt over on the left, and if there's a line through it, that means it's turned off. In the middle, you will see a white arrow pointing up. Remember that because we're going to take a look at that in the next image. Then you see a six-sided icon. That's what you tap to control light or exposure. And then the F is what you tap to control depth of field. So let's look at a screen. Here I've turned on cinematic video, and that black band is across the top, although it's on the side here when I have it in landscape. And remember I mentioned that white upward facing arrow? Well, you want to tap that so it turns yellow and faces down. Then your options appear. You see the focus box is right on the butterfly house. And you know that you get that simply by tapping your finger. And when you tap your finger, another part of the screen, that focus box will move. And in this case, I have tapped on the exposure or the light icon. And it's hard to see, but there is a slider there. The arrow is pointing to it. And you notice up at the top, it says exposure. And so I can slide that. And get different lights. So if I want to make something a little more spooky, I might cut the amount of light or close down the exposure. If I want to create another atmosphere, I may slide it up towards the top and make it brighter. Here's what it looks like when it's in the vertical. Once again, you can barely see that yellow focus box sort of in the middle of the screen, and you will notice the slider scale with the word exposure. And that's because I had tapped that six-sided icon. Now, I want to make choices with my depth of field, the f-stop. And so I'm going to, again, make sure that yellow arrow in the middle is pointing down, give me the options for the different icons. And I'm going to tap on the F. And once again, I'm going to use the slider to adjust my depth of field. And if you look at these two pictures, you see the one on the left, the background beyond the white mailbox is a bit blurry, but not much. I play around with the f-stop and notice on the right that the background has become very blurred, and even the foreground right down at the bottom of the screen is also blurred. So that's a way the filmmaker can adjust the atmosphere of their video. Something to play around with, have some fun with, and make like Steven Spielberg. Moving on. From iPhone 10 and beyond, there were multiple lenses. Some have 2, some have 3. The ones with 3 have a wide angle, an ultra wide angle, and a telephoto. What do these lenses do? Well, you see the image. There's the slider scale above the photo option. It says 0.5, 1x, 2, and 3. So you're going to use your slider scale to select. 0.5 is ultra wide. 1x is wide, and that's the usual place that we leave our choices. 2x is telephoto, and that's a digital crop, and 3x is telephoto, and that's an optical choice. What do I mean by digital and optical? Digital telephoto means it uses software to crop the image. If you've done any editing, you've seen that black box down in the image, and that tells you can crop. So when you are using on an iPhone 14 Pro, for example, and you choose 2x, you're allowing the software to crop the image. An optical telephoto means that the lens is actually magnifying the image, almost as if you put a longer lens on a regular camera. So that's the difference. Digital means the software is cropping, optical means the lens is magnifying. So let's look at some examples. So here's a river walk. The image on the left, 0.5, is the ultra wide angle. And notice the clouds are a little distorted. So you need to pay attention to things like that. So then I switched, standing in the exact same spot, I switched to 1x, which is just wide angle. And as I said, that's usually the setting that we use when we're taking pictures. You can see there's less of the walkway. The clouds do not seem distorted. And here's what happens standing in the same spot. I go to 2x, which is the digital crop. And you see that the walkway has totally been cropped out. The distance shower seems a little closer. And then the picture on the right, I went to 3x, again standing exact same spot. Notice that the shrubbery is much closer, it's lighter. The shoreline across the river seems closer, and I'm only seeing one tree trunk and a few branches. Let's look at some other examples. Once again, different part of the river walk. I've got the 0.5 was the ultra wide. Then the one on the right is just the wide angle. Notice the difference, that things like the walkway has disappeared and there's more focus on the river. Here, it's the 2x, again, standing in exactly the same spot, and it's been cropped automatically. And you see that island appears closer. And when I go to the telephoto, the optical version, that island appears even closer. It's sharper, and there's less in the background. So once again, if you've got the time, take multiple pictures and see which ones you like. And the great thing about an iPhone camera is if you don't like a picture, you can trash it. One more thing. iPhones 14s and laters have something called action mode in video. And where you're going to find this icon is up again at the top, and the yellow or the gold arrow is pointing to it. It's like a figure running, and when you tap it, it turns yellow. Well, what does it do? This helps your video appear smooth even if you're moving around while filming. Think about that. When we're trying to film and we move, our arms and our hands move up and down and it gives kind of a jerky feel to the video. Well, action mode will help smooth that out. So here are some big ideas. Remember that your iPhone cameras are really amazing and they have many options, and many of us have not even begun to tap into them. Think about the end result you're wanting. If you're taking a picture of a person, a grandchild, or a pet, and you really want to focus on their face, then you're going to use portrait mode. If you just want them in context of the surroundings, then you're just going to take a regular image. If you're going to do a big shoot, Thanksgiving's coming up, or a big holiday, or family reunion, practice with the different modes before you take the pictures. That way you'll feel more confident. And once again, take multiple shots, delete the ones you don't like. Have fun, play around with your camera, and experiment. Again, you don't have to pay to have it developed. You just trash the ones you don't like. So once again, this has been BoomerTech Adventures. We hope you will visit us on Facebook, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and don't forget, we have a webpage, www.boomertechadventures.com. Thanks for watching.